Hey, it's Ryan here with the whole crew today. Dan, Alan, Lindsay, welcome to the Road Show. How's everyone doing?
Good morning. How are
Good.
you?
Good.
We got this figured out, I think. You guys get hail where you are at all? So let's
Yes.
just establish. Yeah, you guys are in Seattle. Dan and Lindsay, Alan, you're in the UK. Hail a thing?
Yeah,
Oh,
it
yeah.
is a thing here, but it's not that common. But obviously,
Yeah,
born in Australia, it's a couple of times a year, and it takes stuff out. It's
your
pretty
hail's
aggressive.
probably poisonous in Australia. It's
That's right, it's got
it's
teeth.
probably
Yeah.
next level. You guys get in Seattle, and the reason I ask is I was just on the horn with Abel from Avance, who just moved here from Seattle to Denver, and he got caught up in it. Never really dealt with this. He's got like five, six cars, but you get it, but probably not the same.
We get it, and I feel like it's pretty intense when we do, but it's a rare occurrence.
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
know, car manufacturers deal with that all the time when they're transporting cars
right.
across.
Yeah, it's a thing.
I remember when I was a kid, there was a whole truckload of Explorers that landed at the dealer near me, and they were saying they've got hail damage because they
Really,
had
that's
to do a catastrophic hailstorm while they were on the train, and they were
huh.
dented.
Probably riding through Colorado because it's a thing. I know we all have friends at Porsche Colorado Springs. They actually have a system. Apparently, it's a little clunky, but it's if they know that hail's coming, I don't know. They go out and they basically like hang up these nets, right? I guess it's kind of also a hazard though, like backing up cars and the posts and everything else. They also have a hierarchy, right? If hail's on the horizon, like what cars they put in the
Right.
garage, which is interesting. So they start with like the really juicy stuff, right? Like the Singers and the Roofs, and then they move down to like the GT cars, and then there are the turbos, and then there are the Targas, and then like eventually, I think you get through like the base Macans, and then you make it down to like the 924s and stuff, which probably just stay outside. But
So
just
how
the fact
often
that
do you get hail? Is it like
yeah,
3 months of the year high risk, or is it once
yeah,
a
I'd
year? Or
say this is kind of the time of the year, although it'll happen anywhere maybe from May to September, right? It seems to happen a
wow,
lot this
okay.
time of year. This was a weird one because it was an evening one. It was like 11:30 at night. I was just watching TV, thinking about going to bed. I'd seen the storm sort of pass, and then it just decided to hang out, and then it just went on and on for it seemed like 30 or 40 minutes, and it was
Wow.
kind of pea size to maybe gumball size here with a few bigger ones. I think we were in better shape than a lot of the outlying
They're
areas.
bullets, aren't they?
They
It's
really
got to do
are.
some
Yeah.
damage. What happens insurance-wise? Is that covered by like act of God or something, or is it?
I think
It's
it depends on the plan.
It depends.
Yeah.
We actually had one car effectively get totaled. We when we first moved to Colorado, we had a Honda Fit, which I loved. It was a little manual. I think we're probably the only family in the world that had two cars. One was a 911, the other was a Honda Fit. But that was our Chicago car, right? Like that was the car that got us around. It wasn't quite powerful enough here. Didn't have all wheel drive, but we would have kept that car. It was a great little car, and we just got caught out that first year, and it was like baseball size. It was violent, right? And it's just, I mean, I think my daughter's still traumatized all these years later. And
Wow.
we got a check, and it was not, we actually came out with because we got a check. We ended up trading in that car on the Tiguan we still have, and I think we came out $5,000-6,000 ahead,
So what are you
which was
saying?
not a
If
bad deal.
someone's looking for a cheap Porsche, now's the time to call Colorado Springs, or
That's yeah, that's well, unless someone was out there with those nets I was talking about, but
I think you need to be careful with those boys because they'll just call it patina and
that's
tell you
right.
more.
that's right. Yeah.
That's right. No, it's. I tell you, as a car person, though, it's a complete pain. It's sort of the bane of our existence here. And fortunately, to your point, Alan, it doesn't usually happen more than a couple times a year, if that. Um,
Well, the good thing is if you buy it, like when you buy a brand new car, you're always like cautious in how you use it, and you want to like,
yeah,
you're taking too much care in it, and you. But if you're buying
Right.
something that's already got a bit of damage, you're like, yeah, like let's
yeah,
go,
that's
and
true.
roof box on, like what's his name with the white 991, and just go camping, just go crazy.
Right,
So
right. I think that requires a certain amount of wealth, right? Like where it just does. You almost come full circle and like damage like that. Yeah, it's cool. I'll just
yeah.
it's buy another or something. But I've taken to like keeping moving blankets, like those padded moving blankets in the car, just in case still got to find a place to pull over and
Well,
all
I'm just
that.
looking
But
through the curtains here, and I can see my son practicing golf in the back garden. So,
oh,
it, by the end of this show, we might have a damaged 911 out the front. So I don't
You
know.
have
So
some hail damage of your own.
that's right.
exactly, and one dead son. Yeah. So
Right.
Could be very eventful today.
You said too, you were actually your car is going to be a star today. Your new Targa, right? You're taking it for a photo shoot or something, right? That's
Yeah,
after
a couple of
this.
people have reached out. They're trying to sort of build their profile, and they've asked if I'll go and provide the car for some photo shoots. So one's down in a winery at Denby's, so I've just polished it, so I'm gonna cruise down there, and then I want to go get some pizza. So you might see the rear spoiler jacked up with some pizza boxes on it
Amazing.
later.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
Matt Farrow, when I was talking about that in this Countach, right? Like, I mean, it almost pays for itself, right? Because so many people want it and things, It's just, it's a hot property.
damn, I
So,
forgot to do the ask for money thing. It's like,
right?
yeah, it's an opportunity to drive. So
Right? Well, maybe some free wine and pizza.
yeah, that'll work. So
And you can try out the picnic tray on the back.
Right?
that's it. Yeah,
It's not quite a Countach, but it'll do, right? Yeah.
That's
yeah,
what that's for, though. That's why they put that there.
that's what it's
Right?
for.
Right. Hey, Dan, you just did something really cool. You obviously work very closely with Dirtfish, and you did this Mach-E rally event that I know a lot of our podcast and YouTube, automotive enthusiast colleagues have been talking about. What was that exactly? Because it sounded like Matt Farah couldn't make it because he got sick, cats, strays. Was that the story?
Yeah, it was interesting. So last week, so the final week of May, Ford decided to launch their new variation of the Mach-E, the electric car, and they've got a rally edition. So, where do you launch a rally car? Well, a rally school. It's simple. So they took over the facilities for the whole week. We didn't run any classes at the school. We had various influencers, journalists, and Matt was supposed to be there, and he obviously didn't make it. They flew over a famous rally driver from France to do demo laps. They also flew over from the other side of the states, Vaughn Gittin Jr., who was new for me. He's a drifter. He's a Ford drifter, but I wasn't familiar with him. And they basically used our facilities to show off these cars. And, these cars are the top of the range Mach-E. So they do a GT version, and then they do this rally version. And the rally version has got, better wheels. It's got different modes. It's got a few more, I guess, electric ponies under the motor. But it was a fantastic week. It was interesting seeing the build up to the week, because obviously they came in and did all sorts of testing a few weeks before. They spent a lot of time looking at the facilities and creating their own sort of rally track, with obviously the folks who are the experts at the school advising them. And yesterday, so the 30th, the first set of videos that were under embargo until yesterday came out. I'll point you towards a video that's not out yet. So we had one of our instructors do a video and share his experiences, and BK is his name, and he's a rally instructor and he races. So I'm really looking forward to his video, because he's really going to share his thoughts on the actual vehicle.
Right on. Is this something we can buy, the rally thing? I mean, is this like a track only thing, or?
No, it's available now.
Okay.
It's mid 60s. I don't know about what discounts are available right now, but it's a car you could buy as your family car, but then
is
take
it
it
just
on.
a spec that you buy, or is it a limited edition?
It's a spec from what I understand, but it's
Okay.
got lots of extras on it. So it's
It's got rally mode and
yeah.
different race seats and different race wheels, and obviously all terrain. So yeah, it looks really good.
Lindsay, our
talking to the
resident
engineers.
Shelby Mustang person, is still sore about this being called a Mustang. I can see it.
I'm finding my inner zen and just making peace with it.
I was
Wait
the
till-
same until someone said, that some people can't just buy a Mustang, and they've got like kids and they've got responsibilities and they've got to commute. They can't have two cars. So this is their little way of like getting closer to their dream car. And you think, as sacrilegious as you think it is,
Yeah.
it's okay. Like McLaren did an LT, did a long tail version of one of their models.
Yeah.
And again, for me, like I thought that's just disgraceful, because it didn't actually have a long tail.
Right.
It was just called an LT. So it was like, how dare they? But it's marketing, I think, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
That's what the business is
They
about.
know what they're doing it for, don't they? That's
Yeah.
They do most of the time.
The rumor
well. Back
is
to the
there's gonna
event,
be
Dan.
I was going to say, the rumor is there's going to be a Corvette SUV. Have you guys seen
Oh
that?
God, no.
So it's going to get worse before it gets better.
It's like the same idea. I think that it felt like there was an inauthenticity or a lack of
Yeah.
transparency. Like we all know this isn't an actual Mustang. Maybe be, it's like presented in a different way. Like, hey, we love the Mustang, we love the legacy, we love the history, we love the significance for the company and the car enthusiast community. Presented that way. It just felt like a Emperor's New Clothes, kind of like, okay, but it's not a Mustang.
Yeah.
Hybrid 911s. I mean, cats and dogs.
What's going on in the world?
Well, anyway, back to this event. It sounded like a big success. I mean, it was.
Yeah, we're starting to see the videos come out now. I think the hope is that Ford are hoping that people will actually rallycross these things.
Yeah.
So, take them to local events and get them dirty and use them. At the moment, rallycross in the Pacific Northwest, if you're using an electric car, Teslas are winning hands down.
Is that right?
Really hope that this will,
a lot of money. Like, you could get a Rivian R1T or R1S for that money. That's it's a very different car. So
yeah. Well, and Rivian's had success.
That money?
Will people spend that money, Dan? You think? Or Alan? Well, that's. I mean, the fact that they built like a rally spec car, that's pretty specific, right? It's not just a track car; it's a rally cross spec car, right?
Is it sort of riding the coattails of like the Dakar, movement, or?
Could be. I mean, I would hope and assume they know that there's demand, and that was part of what prompted it.
Well, they can't move those Dakars, so that's.
Oh, really?
No, I'm kidding.
All right, I
think they're still. Wait till those go hybrid, Al, and then they won't be able to. No, I'm kidding. I didn't think about that. It's almost like a Dakar Junior. Makes sense. Yeah. It's, you mentioned Rivian, right? Sort of the same price point, and this is a good segue into Pikes Peak, and that's getting closer every time we meet. But you sent me a photo. Rivian's had pretty good luck at Pikes Peak, and you, of course, were with Rivian for what, 5.5 years?
Yeah. So one of the dynamics and drivability engineers or test drivers, he personally got a car, so it wasn't sort of ultimately a little bit of help, but it wasn't really like a factory program from Rivian, and he went and did it, and it was in the I think it was the what was it, like the show class.
Okay.
And he did well. So in fact, I think he won. So he's doing it again. He's upping his game. So yeah, but genuine, young guy doing it on his own.
Wow.
And a really good driver, really good car. And I think there's a little bit more help now, but I don't know what class he's doing it in this year. So yeah, I'll be watching for sure.
And I think those classes seem to change a little bit every year. We had Trevor Aweda, he and his father, longtime Pikes Peak racers, and that's one of the questions we asked him when we had him on the show when we were doing the steering committee. And he actually couldn't answer the question. It's like, it's a little. We're not quite sure. And so when we go to pick up our press credentials, or maybe I'll be there picking them up for you, but it's also the same day they do the tech inspections. And so, it's crazy because the range of automobiles from like these like factory, semi trailers, these transporters that back up to like literally people with an old pickup truck and something on an old trailer that looks like it was cobbled together, in their garage. It's so
for me, that would be the more interesting day, the
it is
sort of like deep dive and just sort of see the car undercovers. Like the racing obviously is great.
Yep.
It's over in a few minutes, but you can see
you wonder
more.
why they struggle to classify these things, though, because there's a little bit of everything, But
homegrown.
Yeah, that's. So anyway, back to the event at Dirtfish, though. Sorry, we're getting sidetracked, but
I mean, I think it was a great event. Everyone had a lot of fun. I think some of the professional drivers were actually really impressed with some of the instructors. If you become an instructor at the school, there's a whole process to become an instructor. They don't just give you that sort of T-shirt. So I think there was a lot of relationship building there as well, which was pretty cool, and a lot of mutual respect.
Did you get to sit in a passenger seat at all?
I didn't get a ride, so sacrificed.
Too busy working.
That's right, and we wanted to get BK in to be the journalist, so we managed to get him in a ride instead.
Nice.
But I'm looking forward to seeing the outcome. Hopefully they'll come back and they'll let us have some more fun with them.
Well, and hopefully maybe the three of us get an invitation to join.
There we go.
Yeah, I noticed we
Yeah.
didn't get that invitation this year, but
Well,
yeah,
I'm finding
maybe.
out afterwards. What's going? In fact, I found out through Matt Farah, so I was going to be on the phone, say, "Hey, what's going on?" So
Right?
I'll get you
Right.
all NDAs and then we can talk.
Sounds good.
I thought we were friends. Yeah.
Speaking of Matt Farah, you just sent over a link, and as the proud owner of a Corolla GR, I guess they just posted a video with that versus the BRZ TS, which I'm not quite. The TS is sort of an elevated version of the BRZ, but no additional power. Do we need to watch the video? Do you want to spill the beans? Are you? You may have your own sway on this. So
I'm not biased at all. So I think, so basically Matt and Zach were given free track time at this new track. So they decided, well, what do we take to the track? And instead of taking supercars or hypercars, they went for what they're calling more affordable cars. So they take these two, the BRZ, which is about a $36,000 car, and then the Corolla GR Circuit Edition, which is about $44,000. So the idea is that they take both cars to the track and they put a lap down and see who's the quickest. What they don't take into consideration is weight of cars and individual driver skill and all that sort of stuff. So I won't say it's a foregone conclusion.
Okay.
I will say that in the same way that you can split the bias on a Corolla GR to 50-50, 30-70, well, basically it's a 30-70. Matt spent 70% of the time with a bit of a love letter to the GR in terms of
Interesting.
how much he loves the car. So Zach doesn't get as much screen time, but there is a bit of an interesting reveal right at the end. So I won't give that away, but it was an interesting video that's just come out.
Which track did they go to, Dan?
Yeah, what was the track?
It's called Willow something, but it's not Willow Springs.
Huh.
And it's not Button Willow?
Don't think so, no. Yeah. I'll look it up and see.
But it's a new track in Southern California.
Yeah, in the desert. So it's spring.
It's not thermal.
So it's not Willow at
Oh,
all.
it's thermal,
Spring
isn't it?
Mountain,
No?
Spring
Oh.
Mountain Motor Resort and Country Club.
Okay.
That's in, is that in Nevada?
I guess so. I'm going to quickly search it.
Huh. No, it's new to me, so.
I think I've heard of it, but I think it's in Nevada. And it's
So it's worth watching the video then.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's
I know, I like it, Dan. We have to watch it to see what happens at the end.
Right.
Yeah.
Dan, break down the GRs again. You mentioned that this was a circuit edition, but there were at least 3 versions, right? Or are 3 versions?
Launched there were 4. They did this limited run of 200 Maurizio editions named after the owner of Toyota, Mr. Toyota.
Okay.
Because he used to race under that name.
I want a racing name.
So
sounds Italian. I thought that was.
Let us know what Ryan's racing name should be.
Captain Slow's been taken, so that's
That's one of those you take like the street you grew up on as a child and your first pet. And you
Isn't that your porn name?
Maybe.
Moving swiftly on before we get cancelled before we've even started.
PG-13.
So this 24, they do 3 editions. The interesting thing is that the Circuit Edition, which is the top edition for 24, gets the wheels from the Maurizio Edition.
Okay.
In 24. So the only thing you're really losing is a slightly different ratio of gearing, and you get back seats in the Circuit Edition. But yeah.
So that was always a weird thing because, like, you get a GT3 or a Carrera T or something, and you lose the back seats. But we're talking about a 4-door car.
Yeah, and
so that's a different thing. It's
there's no buttons on the windows at the back, but it still has the windows.
It's like a police car.
It's like a wagon, I guess.
Yeah, that's wild.
It's like a 2-door wagon. Yeah.
I love though that they've sliced this thing so thin, and that even the gearing has changed between models. I mean, you just don't see that a lot anymore. That's cool.
Attention to detail, isn't it?
Yeah. In the BRZ, I've spent some time in both generations. It's actually a pretty great car. I do think that the newer version is noticeably better. They smoothed out that torque curve and everything else. I think I'd want a little more power here in Colorado with the atmospheric power loss and all that, but they're pretty great cars. But the whole time I was thinking, God, this would just be so much better with another 50 horsepower. And I get it, right? You're competing against the Miata and some other things, but definitely a very capable chassis, I think, that could handle more. And I don't know that I'd cross shop those 2 cars personally, right? Like, I don't know. You bought the GR, right? Did you ever cross shop the BRZ?
I didn't. I've driven both though.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's the power thing. If that little coupe had a little bit more power, I think they would be even harder to get hold of than the GR Corolla.
Was that a consideration for you, or were you Corolla the whole time?
I was Corolla the whole time because of the rally, the rally link.
And BRZ, could you rallify it yourself? Obviously, that's more involved.
Yes, and they are heavily rallied in North America. They're a really good platform to rally, but they don't have the history. So they weren't designed specifically for rally cars, whereas you could argue that the Corolla was, even though it was originally the Yaris.
Oh, okay.
In Rallified, I think we have the name of our episode here. This is
there we go.
All we can do is I've just been Googling racing names for fantasy.
That's
Ryan, you can either be Redline Ryan or Rubber Ryan. So
I'm going to go with Redline.
I think at night time you can be Rubber Ryan.
That's right.
Your choice.
That's funny.
It's a different
That's funny.
Dan, you're I haven't got to you yet, Lindsay, so I'll keep searching. But Dan, you can be Dynamite Dan or Digger Dan. So Drifter Dan.
Drifter, there we go.
There we go.
Yeah. Although Drifter Dan sounds like a hobo or something.
Yeah.
Goes from town to town.
Right.
That's what happens when you go racing and you spend all your money.
That's
then
right.
You become a drifter.
That's right. That's funny. What about Lindsay?
I'm searching. Bear with. Talk amongst yourselves.
I love it. There's like a system. It's like a tip calculator. There's like a system here. It's...
Right. Plug in your star sign and your latitude.
Right.
Oh, here we go. Leadfoot Lindsay. That's it.
All right. There you go.
There.
So,
Right.
in Lindsay, I mean, has real like racing, driving, instructing chops too. So like there is, that makes sense. So anyway, it's not always about having the lead foot though, is it?
Well, that's possible. It's not the first time I've
It just
heard that.
knows. It just knows you. So
It does.
We have
That's accurate.
yeah.
speaking of lead foot, if you've been to Colorado or you're local here in Colorado, we have a notorious speed trap called Morrison, Colorado. It's where Red Rocks is. Dan, you and I have been to Red Rocks. Saw a great Counting Crows show there last year.
Nice.
It's this little town, and I get it. Everyone tears through town. The choppers, sports car people. It leads to a nice canyon road and some other stuff. But it's always been a bit of a joke because it's a town of, I think, 650 people, and they have a police force of like 80. Okay, so I think it's a lot of like friends of friends, part-time cops, this kind of thing. Well, they decided that wasn't enough, and just a couple weeks ago put their own speed trailer out, and they apparently sent 10,000 violations in the first week.
Wow, they
at
got
$100 a
hell of
pop.
Christmas party, aren't they? So,
Right?
boys, we need to up the game this year. Get out there. So,
Right. Some of this, we need top shelf this time.
Just if you're in the area, avoid that place on the map. There be dragons in Morrison, so stay away from Morrison, Colorado. But I was going to ask you, Lindsay, you just mentioned before we got on the show, you just drove a couple ECU Land Rovers. What is it?
Yeah. So it's ECD Automotive.
ECU. That's a whole other thing. ECD Land Rovers. It was new to me.
That's a part. So you're in the right. You're in the right ballpark.
What's an ECD Land Rover?
So it's a company that takes classic Land Rover Defenders, Range Rover Classics. They've done some classic Jags. They did a Mustang, and they basically reimagine them. And they
can't say that. Only Singer can reimagine.
What's the other one? Reimagine. What is?
Tribute?
I can't remember what.
We get what you're saying. Yeah, no, it's
Remastered.
make them There you go. That's
They elevate them.
That's right.
They redo them. They restore them lovingly, very well.
Yeah.
The interiors are incredibly luxurious. They've thought of all the sort of creature comfort touches. The upholstery is very nice.
They do actually call themselves, reimagined Range Rovers.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
How do they get away with that?
Don't know.
Nobody has noticed yet.
Sorry, guys.
This isn't like an offshoot company or something, right? A dotted line on the org chart to okay.
No, they're totally different. And they started, it's two brothers actually from Britain, and they did one for themselves, and people started noticing. And so they've scaled it up over the years. They're based in Florida right now.
Florida, okay.
So I got to drive one of the classic Defenders. And what's interesting is that they redo them. The interiors are completely modern, but they also have vintage touches. Like the Defender that I drove had a vintage, style wooden steering wheel. So it's kind of like nods to the history. It makes
Yeah.
it a fun, like adds some novelty to the driving experience.
You got some good
And
friends. So prices start at
Oh,
$250,000.
hey.
right.
Not to 60 in 6 seconds,
Oh,
430 brake horse. And I seriously hope that they have done some chassis engineering because you'll be constantly fighting it down the road. So
Right. Well, so that's what was impressive. Obviously the Defenders are big vehicles and you feel that when you're driving it, but it was also really enjoyable. And I
was it,
think the cool thing about the Defenders, their focus is kind of equipping them to be, off-road, overlanding, beach camping, like adventure vehicles. And what's nice is you can do all different configurations inside. One of them had, 6 captain's chairs. So
there you go.
it made, even the third row is very accessible and you could take 6 adults comfortably. Each seat has its own, plugs and USB and all of that stuff.
wow.
So it's very comfortable inside, but it's well set up to take all
Yeah.
your as well. So that was really fun. But the one that really, stole my heart was the Range Rover Classic. And
Uh,
again, very luxurious inside. I remember those from when I was a kid. Like
oh,
that
yeah.
body was always sort of nostalgic.
Yep.
Excuse me. I need to have some tea. And so
Yeah, Lindsay's just getting over an illness here, so it's
Yeah.
great that
Man,
you
I'm
could join us. But
defrogging my voice, so we'll just bear with me. But so this one has a Chevy LT4 supercharged engine, which has a mere 630 horsepower.
wow.
And it was just like instantly intoxicating because you
Yeah.
step on the gas, the whine, and it just gets up and goes immediately. Like the car like raises up a tiny bit, maybe that's my imagination, but that's what it feels like. And it was just so much fun. The only problem there is that I'm like, okay, but let's say I picked my daughter up from school in this, we'd be flooring it away from school. I'd be
Right.
out of the market. I mean,
Right. That's one of, Lindsay, you hit on something. That's an iconic car for those of us in the US, at least, because I guess it was 87, 88. They started to release those in the United States. I wanted one more than anything. I begged my parents to trade in our Chrysler minivan on one. We even did a couple
right.
of test drives. And I remember the sales guy, and this was Indiana. This was Indianapolis. We had one dealership. They had 1 or 2 cars and we took it out. And my mom, this was at the time when SUVs tipped over and stuff. And I remember my mom asking the sales guy, well, is this going to tip over? And she said, no, these are built for the Autobahn. And I remember him taking it around a corner at a very high speed, and we almost tipped over. And we never ended up buying a Range Rover. But that shape, right? The cut of that jib, right? I mean, that's just, to your point, nostalgic. It represented something much in the way like a 300 TE Mercedes wagon did, right?
Right.
There was a certain kind of person who drove one of those.
Yeah, very similar era,
Yeah.
nostalgia wise, and to have it modernized. There's obviously we all know that classic Range Rovers had some maintenance concerns. So for it to have a different engine, you could end up with different issues, obviously, but it eliminates a little bit of the concern of like a classic Range Rover.
Yeah.
And it was just really fun.
Yeah.
It was a great combination of you could use it every day if you wanted to, because you could take family and pets and whatever because of the size, but it would also be a really fun classic weekend car.
Yeah.
And again, because of the size and the capacity and utility, you could take the whole family. So I really enjoyed it.
That sounds awesome. It sounds like something I would actually buy. Maybe not the 110, but I'd like a whole garage full of reimagined sort of country club cars from 1988.
What would be top of the list for you?
Man, a Range Rover for sure. I love the idea of like, and I've got one behind me that belongs to a friend, but like an old 560 SL Mercedes, but not that they're bad cars, but again, sort of modernized, big V8, not a lot of power, put an LS4 in there.
Right.
Do you remember like the wood paneled like Chrysler the Barons? Like that was a pretty hot car, at the country club at the moment. And not that we were ever at the country club, but it's,
well, and then you discover that the wood paneling is actually contact.
Well, that's life lesson there, right? So, what was like the equivalent in the UK or in Australia? That was kind of the upper middle class, keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing.
So something that actually we touched on earlier on is obviously you have Range Rover, but then there was the brand called Rover, and they
Yeah.
used to do some different. It was kind of like shared a lot of parts with Jaguar, so it
Mm.
was kind of like the poor man's Jag, but people who drove like the Rover 75 used to feel quite fancy, and those
Uh,
who sort of knew about cars were like, really, like you're really. So um, yeah.
we we had that, I think, is the Sterling 827, if I'm not mistaken, right? Wasn't that brought up? Do you remember the Sterling, Lindsay? You were a little younger than me, but there was a
Look that up. I'm not younger enough where if you were
well, I think it was built on a Rover. It's called the Sterling 827. I think it was also connected somehow to like an Acura Legend. Like they think
Oh,
they
well, there
they
were a lot of, you think about like the GM Saab
cool.
partnerships. There were
Yeah.
a lot of just kind of one-off random
The
partnerships.
Sterling
Like,
827 was a Rover,
Was a
but it was
Rover.
the generation before that. And actually, it would be quite cool to cruise around in one of
Right?
these now. So,
Saw one
yeah.
at Radwood at Amelia Island. I hadn't seen one in like literally 20 or 30 years, and
So
brought
back
back a lot
then,
of
in
memories.
that car, they did an Alley V8, and it was like an amazing engine. So that engine
Huh.
then got used in lots of different race car builds,
Huh.
and because it was light, it was good power, it was reliable. So,
Alley
yeah,
was the manufacturer.
aluminium, aluminum. So, sorry, forgot global audience. So,
I don't know where you find that extra syllable. I don't, but I know you do. So it's so
I think
you
that-
and you were in.
listen, I'm going to close this now because living in engineering and coming from Rivian and
Yeah.
working with a lot of guys from the US, the world like metallurgy standard has said it's aluminium. So who
Okay.
am I to argue? So it's
Where's
fallen
my
our
now
way.
you know button? That's- and you were in Australia, and Dan, obviously you were in the UK. Similar.
Yeah, I mean, we actually had. I'm looking at a picture of this Sterling.
Yeah.
We had they weren't called the Sterling, but we had those Rovers.
So what were they called in the UK?
I don't know, but they had different levels, and I'm guessing that they shipped the biggest engine to the US.
It was a 6, I think, where
It was
we
a
were.
Rover Fastback, as I would know it.
Oh yeah, right.
Um,
There was a fastback version,
Oh,
which I
um,
don't think we got, but
It was a collaboration between Honda and
Right,
Rover.
okay.
So then it was called the brand name Sterling. So
and yet they were still terrible despite the Honda influence, right? I bet if they sold more than 1,000 of those or 1,200 in the States, I'd be shocked. I mean, they were a rare thing then.
well,
It's
hold on to your hat. In 1987, they sold 14,000, 98,
14.
8,900, 89,
Really?
5,900, and then 1991, 2,700.
well,
So
they
it was
must
it
have
was
been
like,
on the coasts.
Is that globally, Alan?
US sales.
That's wild
Wow.
to me. You
Wow.
know, I mean, of course, this was also the era you could still get a Peugeot, right? Was it the MI6 or the M16 or
That was a
whatever it
great
was?
one, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we had some oddballs still around. Then it was.
It was the Rover 800.
There
Oh,
we go.
Rover
Okay.
800 in Australia as well.
Huh.
Never saw one. I was
Ah.
all about the Aussie Ute back then. So
So sorry, Dan. I don't know if you got a chance to answer the questions for what that upward bound middle manager, right, at the accounting
Yeah.
firm, right? Like, what was he?
It was mainly 3 Series BMWs.
Yeah.
That was and if you were lucky, you had a car with a car phone in it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
in the center, there was a car. You'd made it if you had a car with a car phone in the middle.
Did you have the little coiled antenna?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The Gordon
to-
Gekko brick
Oh,
phone.
that's right. We used to be able to buy just the antenna. You could put on your car, and that was in and of
And-
itself, a status
symbol.
symbol. Ask me how I know. I had one on my 320i, which I had forgotten about completely until this moment. So, anyway.
Wow.
What would be that car now? Like, what's that? Because BMWs have become commodity cars. Can't buy a Sterling, right? Like, what's
Like when we look back in 20 or 30 years.
yeah? Like, what?
Well,
I mean, it's
the Range Rover was the Range Rover Classic.
Yeah,
for you and
yeah.
I was aspirational.
yeah. Aspirational is the word.
That would have been a stretch.
Yeah,
So what feels aspirational now?
it's probably not a car, right? It's
A
probably
boat.
something else. You know what? I've been seeing a lot of those. Is it the Acura? Is it the TL? It's their sort of performance sedan.
That
I
is
don't
one of
even-
their sedans.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool. I feel like I see a lot of young guys around. I feel like it was the A4 here for a long time, right?
Oh yeah, or an
You know,
S4.
that was or the S4, right? Owned
Or-
both of those. Apparently, I was aspirational, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's an
Yeah, that's
interesting.
because the Range Rover Classic would have been the aspirational family
Absolutely,
car. It was
yeah.
the aspirational family car
Yeah.
right now, right now for everybody.
Is it a Range
True.
Rover still?
Maybe the Range Rover Sport, a little more accessible, right? I feel like younger people driving those around,
Or
not paying
a
attention.
G-Wagon?
Yeah, Range Rover have always kind of held that space
Yeah.
nicely. I had a friend who worked
Yeah.
there, and he said once they have the customer retention is something like only 20%. So
Really?
maybe people get there. I don't know if it's still the same. I don't, they're expensive to maintain.
Yeah,
Right.
So I don't know whether people get in, they have their fun, and then get out and go get a Mercedes or a BMW or something. So
I think there's a big group where they go, okay, I checked that box. I tried it. I had the experience. But I know several people who once they bought one, they said, this is it. I had a friend who had an LR3, and when they switched him over to the LR4 and then discontinued it, they went and bought an LR4 because they said, we love it so much. We just have to, make sure that we have one.
my family never ended up buying a Range Rover, but I did talk my parents into a Discovery, a Series 2 Discovery eventually.
it's up there though.
Yeah,
It's kind of in that same bracket as like, you're a cool mum and dad if you have one of those.
absolutely. Yeah, but at 40,000 miles, the warranty company had to come out to the little town where they live because the engine failed. I think it was seals or something, and it was going to be like a $10,000 fix, and they just wanted to make sure. Like they flew someone out from the warranty company to make sure that they, weren't full of shit and could cover the thing.
Like, it's worth the time and money to send an actual person.
Right. So anyway, but they never bought another. They were not retained as a customer, so chalk them up to one of the 80%, I guess, who didn't return. But anyway, what else do we know? You were at a car show locally, a Cars and Coffee, but it was at Brooklands.
Yeah, so for people who don't know, Brooklands in the UK is it's a lot of history. It was one of the first banked car racing, or first motor racing circuits, and it's banked, and it's obviously long been disused. But there's Mercedes bought a lot of the land in the middle, and they've got a showroom and a test track, and then there's a museum off to the side, and they do events every week and every weekend, and they got a lot of really cool stuff in there. And now coming back after being in Southern California, I'm hungry for different car events, and I don't know whether it's always been like this or whether it's sort of COVID and post-COVID, it's people have got more toys now and they want to get out and use them. But it's an event called Cool Flow, which sort of real surprise. It's from the VW and crowd, and so everyone's really cool. There's some funky music, there's obviously a beer stand. But it's really everything, and there's everything from the old Beetles to slammed vehicles to chopped vehicles to early Porsche 911s or and obviously then some joker turned up in a very new black Targa as well, parked it slap bang in the middle. I don't know who this guy was, but
They're on the family tree, right?
it loosely, but yeah, exactly. You kind of had bookends of cars, so
Nice.
Nobody we know, right?
Yeah.
No, not at all. Not proud to know anyway. So,
And Lindsay, I know you spent some time on an electric bike for the first time recently, and I mentioned that to Alan before we started recording. So I want you to talk about what you were on, and then I want Alan to mention what he has in his garage.
Oh, I can't wait to hear. Okay,
What were you on?
So I was on an electric bike company bike, and it was my first electric bike experience. And it turned out, so my daughter and I and one of her cousins and aunts, they have two of the electric bikes, and the kids were just on regular bikes.
Yeah.
And we rode down to Balboa Island. We were in Newport Beach, rode to Balboa Island. And I mean, it was the quintessential, Memorial Day weekend, ride your bikes to the beach. And then if you're familiar with Balboa Island or Arrested Development, we did stop at the frozen banana stand at the end of the day and got frozen bananas. We had 8 kids lined up on a bench eating frozen bananas. And I was like,
that's awesome.
This is the definition of Memorial Day weekend. But the bike, it was really interesting. It's very heavy, at least for me. And so the two moms were on the electric bikes, and we both said we need more upper body strength because they are so heavy.
Interesting.
And
It's a solid framed bike, isn't it? It's
it's
sturdy.
really, and I don't know, like, I think they probably make different sizes. I haven't looked into it that closely, but I was on Uncle's bike, and so he's taller than I am. So I think it was probably maybe a little bit too big and heavy.
Yeah.
But even then, once I got the hang of it, there's a little bit of a learning curve, like figuring out how to turn it on and get it started and use the assist and figure out the speeds. But it was so much fun.
Yeah.
It was great. And then, there's a few hills, and it was incredibly nice to have just even a tiny bit of an
Right?
assist on the hill.
You don't show up sweating. And so where does Electric Bike Company fit in, like the pantheon of electric bike manufacturers? I mean, obviously they have the most original name, but like versus Cake, and what are some of these others? Some, I feel like some aren't even in business anymore. And then tomorrow there are new manufacturers.
Definitely
But
a sort of a beach cruiser, surfy kind of look, aren't they? Like even the old chain guard, it's varnished timber.
There's your
nice.
weight.
Yeah.
Varnished. It's varnished timber.
Yeah.
It's funny because I've got one just over there.
Really?
Oh, really?
Same company?
Yeah,
Same?
yeah, electric bike company.
Are you kidding? What do you
Yeah.
think?
I love it. I hacked the BIOS, so I mean I'm no Alan, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I hacked it, so it will do 30 miles an hour. In theory, it does 100 miles on a battery charge. The battery is right at the back of the bike.
Right.
So I don't know if it's the same one, but it's like a beach cruiser, but you have the battery at the back. And I bought it in the start of COVID, and the first 2 years of COVID, I put more miles on the bike than I did the cars.
Wow. And now it's just you're hanging your socks and underpants on there.
That's right.
Or...
It's like a treadmill.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's funny. It's something I've not spent much time with, but Alan, we mentioned this bike, and this was like 2,000 watts or something. Do you know how powerful these bikes are? You know what yours is, Dan?
I'll Google to see how powerful it is.
Because it seems to be the standard is something around a couple thousand watts, right, for like a good electric bike. And Alan heard that and said, "Hold my beer."
Right.
Yeah. So I had some time and a bit of a frustrated designer in the evenings. What does a designer do in the evening? Design something else. And I thought, I fancy a commuter bike. What would be good? Do I want to use bike lanes? What's the rules? And so I went to the guys in LA, high-powered cycles, HPC, and I said, right, what's the most powerful stuff you've got? And they said, well, we've got this, but we don't recommend it because it's kind of dangerous. And I went, that sounds kind of fun. So I'll take a kit.
Too.
And so I was going to design a frame, and I still am. But I said to them, look, okay, can you, while I'm designing the frame, have you got something I could bolt these things into and use it? And they said, look, it's a bit of an odd combination of stuff, but they put it together, and it's basically it's a BMX that's got 8,000 watt hub motor, and this thing is the best commute to work ever. You don't put a cycle helmet on, you put a motorcycle helmet on, and you're almost scraping the knees around corners, and this thing's got like sort of motorcycle wheels or tires on it, on the bike wheels, and I'm out dragging Teslas from the track.
That's amazing. What is like horsepower wise? What would that translate to?
Good question. I'll come back to you with my trusted friend, Google Engineering.
Because I feel like and you ride sport bikes. That's the thing. So you're not going into this like with no experience. I mean, you've had Ducatis and other powerful fast bikes, so this is probably nothing. But you still, even in those, don't have that torque right off the line. Quite the same way, do you?
Pretty talky with the Desmo Quattro.
Yeah,
engine,
okay.
But yeah, this is next level.
Next level.
And I have landed on my back a few times when it catches you out. So
really,
aside from it's very fun.
Yeah, it's all part of the journey. So
yeah.
It's a little longer learning curve than the electric bike company bike.
Right.
Yeah. I did have to sign a waiver to say that I'm acknowledging what I'm getting and they're not liable. So, yeah.
That's California for you, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you had a pretty good time in California while you were there, Alan.
Just make sure my wife's not listening. Yeah, it was okay. So it was good.
Well, the electric bike company design is interesting because, like you said, Dad, the battery's on the back. There's another company that I don't know the name where the battery is on the piece that the pedals are on either side of. So it's in front of you when you're riding, which it'd be interesting to experience that, because with how heavy the electric bike company bike was for me, getting off of it, sometimes it would start to go, to the side, and you're trying to get your foot over. So if there had also been a battery there, it could have been trickier.
Yeah. I think they're about 60 pounds, so they're not
That's
light.
not nothing. Yeah.
No, especially, I didn't know that going in, and you think, oh, it's a bike. I've used a bike before, and then you go to move it, and it's like, oh, no. So I need to do some push-ups and planks before I do it.
Right.
And remember, a minute planking is good. Okay, I'm just putting it out there. So
I thought 30 seconds planking was good.
well, maybe I'm just a stuntman. I don't know. So.
So any idea what 8,000 watts translates to? I just expected you to make something up.
Exciting. It's 10 horsepower. But,
10. Okay.
Yeah, I expect a little bit more, but it's power to weight ratio is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And when it's moving, it's great. So
I bet.
Is it a little scary?
it's exciting. So that probably means yes. So.
You brought it back to the UK, yeah?
I did, yeah. I couldn't leave it there. I was worried. Who do you leave it with? So so I've got all my foster children back here now, all the bikes, and I have not enough space, so I had to get a storage unit down the road, and I go and sit in there and just admire them some days. It's like, yes,
nice.
Here we are.
Go and visit all the toys.
Well, what are we doing this weekend, guys? What's on the car agenda?
What do you think? Lake Washington Cars and Coffee, Dan?
Well, there's a new event. I don't know if you saw, but they've announced a Saturday. It's the same group that organise it, and it's at Folsom headquarters, which is in downtown Seattle. So, not the prison, I hope not.
I'm out.
But so I might check that out. It's a whole brand new event. They've done a partnership. So historically, like Washington Cars and Coffee is a Sunday staple, but they're going to do a Saturday event as well. So maybe I'll check that out, and I'll send you the details, Lindsay, if you're up here, and you can have a look.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Very nice. Alan?
There's a couple of things going on. So the Cars and Coffees around the show, around the place, but I've got to get a little bit of a few things done, because the weekend after is
Hey.
And so I am that guy that will set up every family member's laptop like a Formula One team, so I can do lap times, sector times, split times, car cams, and then I'll have the TV on, and so I need to get all the jobs done, so I'm good to go next weekend. So
and if you're not watching, you're just listening, what were you holding up, Alan?
Oh, it's the Motorsport magazine Le Mans edition. So, and it came with obviously the legend. So I'm going to read up on the classes, because they've changed them a little bit recently. So I've got to get back up to speed with what classes are running at Le Mans, what manufacturers, what drivers. So I've worked with quite a few drivers that do continually race at Le Mans. So I definitely want to reach out and see if we can get any of them on the show at any point. So talk about their experiences.
Awesome.
That would be awesome.
Well, I'm going to be working, to your point. The Colorado Grand is going to be here before we know it, and each year I write the car descriptions for the route book. So once the list of accepted entries is finalized, I take that and I come up with little car descriptions for each of them, which some are easy. Some are more difficult, some of the more obscure cars. And then we always have, a lot of like Porsche 356s of different varieties. So then the struggle is, well, how do you find something to write about each one? Some of the cars are carryovers or have been, participants in years past, but I got to get started with that. And to kick that off, I'm going to meet up with Tom Horan, the chair of the Grand tomorrow. We're going to meet up. There's a renowned Porsche shop here in town, run by a guy by the name of Dave Iams, and I think we're going to have lunch and kick off this thing. So can't wait for that. It's fun, but it's a lot of work. So much going on
coming up in the next few weeks.
Absolutely. Fuel Fed Boulder here in town has a drive on Sunday, which I have not yet signed up for, but I might try to weasel my way in. They always do a good job. But I did so much last weekend. I feel like, you got to keep the balance. Alan, you mentioned wife, family, you're right. You can't, there's more than you can do, right? And you've got to draw the line somewhere. But anyway. as long as it's not hailing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So we should probably wrap this up. I don't know that we've ever given out our Instagram handles, and I think we probably should do that. Make sure you follow us here. Make sure you follow us on Instagram. I'll start. We can go around the Brady Bunch picture here, but I'm at Ryan Barkey. It's RyanBahrke on Instagram, and I'm pretty much just an Instagram person. I like to post
That's
my
not
pictures.
going to change to Redline Ryan? Or
That's maybe. We'll see.
yeah.
We get more pull with that, Dan?
Yeah, at Danny P with a 9, so it's D9NNYP. So at Danny P.
Lindsay?
I'm Lindsay M. Jesh, so M like Mary, and then JESCH on Instagram.
Alan?
Nice. Yeah, I'm Mr._Alan Orchard, all one word, so ALLEN, and just to be a little bit different. So
I
that's
like
me.
that, bringing the class. And just, not just because I'm a friend of each of you, but you're all great follows. I mean, because we're all doing a lot, right? We're all, we have something all the time that we're posting. So,
Yeah,
and then if you want to,
I apologize for today's post, which was, those things that go around, say, add your photo to this, and it was share a photo of yourself as a kid. And my mum used to cut my hair, and I'm the youngest of 5, so there's some flared jeans in there. So on the BMX, wearing a
no, that is
Suzuki
awesome.
shirt. So I
Yeah.
don't care. Have a laugh. It's good.
No, you
I'm
were, well,
surprised it was in color.
Yeah. Cerise. Yeah.
that's funny. That's funny.
But like subtle, go check out my page.
There you go.
won't believe what I've
He
done.
knows what he's doing, right?
Yeah.
Nothing if not strategic. And then, of course, we now have a page as a team, which
Right.
is
The Roadshow podcast.
that's right.
Go
So-
check it out.
Check it out. So, all right. Well, always good to see you three. Glad we were finally able to get together at one time. We'll be doing
Right.
this again soon. I think we can leave it at until next time. We're the Roadshow. Thank you.
Thank
See you
you.
later.